President-elect Donald J. Trump appeared virtually to be sentenced in his criminal hush money case. In a dramatic statement, the judge made clear that Donald Trump would be sentenced without any jail time or any other penalty for that matter. And that's because of one reason, and only one reason: his status as soon-to-be 47th President of the United States. Trump spoke on his own behalf, showing no contrition, bragging about his election win, and slamming the justice system.
It's been a political witch hunt. It was done to damage my reputation so that I'd lose the election, and obviously that didn't work. And the people of our country got to see this firsthand because they watched the case in your courtroom.
CNN's Kara Scannell was inside that courtroom, and she joins us now. Kara, what was that like?
Hey, Dana, really an extraordinary moment. Donald Trump had been at every single day of this criminal trial, but today, the day of his sentencing, which he sought so hard to try to stop, he appeared on a video screen. It was set up in the courtroom, and when Trump delivered those statements to the judge, Judge Juan Merchan, who was sitting on the bench, had turned, was facing the monitor, watching Trump as he sat beside his attorney, Todd Blanche, and delivered those statements. And then the judge delivered his sentence. He also continued to look at that monitor as he spoke to the president-elect and explained to him that he could have sentenced him from as much as 1 1/3 to 4 years in prison on each count. But he emphasized, as you noted, that Trump is now reelected to the office of the presidency, and that weight, those legal obligations and benefits that he receives heading into that office, is what guided his sentence.
It is the legal protections afforded to the office of the President of the United States that are extraordinary, not the occupant of the office. Ordinary citizens do not receive those legal protections. It is the office of the President that bestows those far-reaching protections to the office holder. And it was the citizenry of this nation that recently decided that you should once again receive the benefits of those protections.
Now, there was Judge Juan Merchan speaking there. You know, this is the first time that the public has heard the judge speak. Trump has been critical of the judge, calling him biased for months, both at the beginning of this trial and ever since the jury's verdict. The judge there explaining, you know, his belief that this sentence, even if it's an unconditional discharge, does reinforce that very jury verdict. And the public now can hear the judge, can hear his manner, his tone. That is exactly what he brought throughout the trial, that even in the face of Trump insulting him and the rule of law, the judge has maintained kind of that steady, even presence from the bench. As his parting words to Trump as he was wrapping up the sentencing was, he said Godspeed to Trump as he entered the White House for his second term. Dana?
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, I cannot even imagine what it was like to be in there. Thank you for giving us so much of the color and, more importantly, the information. Kara, appreciate it. And I want to bring in some excellent reporters and legal experts here. CNN's chief legal affairs correspondent, Paula Reed, former federal prosecutor and CNN legal analyst Ellie Honig, former federal prosecutor Shan Wu, and CNN's very own Jeff Zeleny. Paula, I want to start with you now that we have the details, with the big picture here, because we sat at this table for months and months and months talking about not just this case, but the other cases that Donald Trump was being investigated on, was being prosecuted for, federal, New York, as he was running for president in the Republican primary, then, of course, in the general election. And here we are, just a little more than a week before he is going to take the oath of office again. And we learned the answer to a question that we've been asking, which is, what kind of impact is it going to be? And the answer is not only no politically, but legally, the answer is virtually nothing. Aside from today, which is not nothing, but there's no penalty.
You face a more significant punishment for speeding in Manhattan than what Trump got today. He faced 4 criminal cases, some real serious legal jeopardy, particularly in the federal cases. But as of now, this is the only consequence, and it's de minimis. It's nothing. And his defense team deserves a lot of credit for guiding him through these cases and helping him to delay. But you know who also deserves a lot of credit? The courts and some prosecutors. I mean, we look today, we were 1 justice away from this sentencing not even happening today. 4 justices agreed that this sentencing should be delayed, which really surprised a lot of legal experts who thought it was way too soon for the Supreme Court to get involved. Of course, a Trump-appointed judge down in Florida, she tossed out the classified documents case. That's on appeal, but that really shocked most legal experts. The Supreme Court waited 7 months to weigh in on immunity, made it impossible for Jack Smith to bring the January 6th case, and also gave him some immunity. And then down in Georgia, the final case, the lead prosecutor had a romantic relationship with the person she appointed to oversee the case. So yes, the Trump defense team has done an extraordinary job by their client here, but he also got a lot of breaks from questionable decisions within the judiciary and prosecutorial offices.
Okay, let's thank you for putting that sort of in the broader context. I do want to drill down on what we heard this morning, because just listening to it, we first got the quotes from the judge, and then we actually got the audio. And listening to it, it was really dramatic, listening to Judge Merchan, who, of course, Donald Trump has spent the better part of a year, maybe even more than a year, really trashing as somebody who is biased and so forth. The judge clearly wanted to, as Kara suggested, maintain an even keel. The kind of comment, though, that he made was very clear and deliberate. Kind of what you said, which is this is not so much the fact that he is getting no penalty, so much about what he is convicted of doing. It's about what he is about to become. Let's watch.
Yep. The considerable, indeed, extraordinary legal protections afforded by the office of the chief executive is a factor that overrides all others. To be clear, the protections afforded the office of the president are not a mitigating factor. They do not reduce the seriousness of the crime or justify its commission in any way. The protections are, however, a legal mandate, which, pursuant to the rule of law, this court must respect and follow.
So, Ellie, to sum it up, what the judge is saying is that U.S. citizens don't get special treatment, but the office of the presidency does.
Yeah, the judge went out of his way to make a point in that clip we just heard him throughout today of saying, the reason I'm sentencing you to nothing is not because you did nothing wrong. The reason I'm sentencing you to nothing is because you have been reelected president. And out of respect, not even for you, President-elect Donald J. Trump, but the office of the presidency, that's why I'm doing this, and that's what compels this. And I'm glad you raised the point earlier, Dana, about the tone of the sentencing. People got to hear it. Obviously, Shannon and I have both been to many of them. But sentencing is a really solemn occasion. In a case like this, even where you know there's not going to be prison time, more so where somebody's going to have their liberty taken away. And I think it was a good lesson in the way our courtrooms and our processes should work. Everyone, I think, gets credit. I think the DA made a brief but compelling and concise presentation. Trump did his sort of usual song and dance, but in a subdued tone, right? I mean, Dana, you've heard him in different tones before, I'm sure, but he was subdued today. And I think the judge did a good job of saying, here's what brings us all here today, and here's why I'm making this decision. But ultimately, was Donald Trump unfairly singled out, or is he being held to account like anyone else? We'll let that one play out on appeal.
Shan?
I think decorum was certainly the winner today. I think Merchan's done a great job in the trial up until the conviction. Then I think he kind of got derailed. He overthought the case, in my opinion. He should have just sentenced the man and then let the appeals process take care of it. Today, he actually, I kind of, all due respect to him, disagree with a lot of what he said. I mean, he had many options. He could have imposed the sentence and then suspended it. He could have done a lot of things other than the unconditional discharge, but give him credit. He did seem to find the way through the minefield where if he had not said no jail time, real question if that Supreme Court vote would have been just a tad different and stopped the entire thing. So you give him credit for actually, in Bill Barr's words, landing the plane at this point.
And the fact of the matter is, even though there's no penalty, he still is going to take the oath of office for the first time in U.S. history as a convicted felon.
Which is what is so extraordinary about this entire episode. Really, if this case had not come forward, there are serious questions if Donald Trump would have won the Republican presidential nomination. So in many respects, this entire episode, thinking back to when he first left Trump Tower, I think it was like in March or so of 2023, and you could just see, once this case sort of came, the party and his supporters rallied around him. So now we are full circle. Yes, he will be sworn in 10 days as a convicted felon, but the bigger picture is the people had a chance, the voters had a chance to weigh in on this, and they don't care about this particular case. So I think that it will be a piece of history, but today I don't think will be thought about for a long time. I mean, look, he's already moving forward. His administration is taking shape. So yes, we are talking, and rightly so, about the historic nature of this, but it's largely over and behind him.